President Trump said he was going to knock the hell, quote, knock the hell out of the Persians, Iran, if they were going to rebuild their ballistic missile program. Is the way to see this, and I don't want to have too much of a jaundiced eye here when we're talking about, which I think is a sideshow, which is the Middle East and Israel, a sideshow to a sideshow. Was this just the kickoff to Netanyahu 2026, his campaign, sir?
Well, I don't know if this is the kickoff. Things have been happening for a while, and these diplomatic deals and the gas deal with Egypt. Israel signed a $35 billion gas deal with Egypt that was announced a couple of weeks ago, and all sorts of big weapons deals. There's been a lot going on, a lot of PR, and it certainly is the beginning of campaign season here in Israel. Look, when it comes to elections, and Bibi has, there's a lot of problems with Bibi Netanyahu, but the way the coalition politics works in Israel, and it's far beyond the scope of this discussion to get into the weeds on this. Maybe at some later point when it gets closer to the election, we can talk about it. But there's kind of he will be the next prime minister. I mean, it's just going to happen again because of the way things are, and his Likud party being so popular, and he still laps the field. It's kind of similar to the Republican primary in 2024, where there's no real challenger when it comes to who people prefer as prime minister. The left in Israel has been decimated and destroyed, and Bibi's he heads up the largest right-wing party. So yeah, it's kind of the campaign, but the truth is in the current makeup of the way our coalition politics works, he kind of doesn't need the help. And I'm not saying that as an endorsement. It's just a fact.
I got it. Well, President Trump, I think, endorsed him. I mean, he couldn't have spoken higher. Said there wouldn't even be an Israel. It wouldn't even be an Israel if you didn't have Netanyahu. Before I let you go, you've been an advocate of, hey, these meetings, we shouldn't even have to have them as often. We should have our own independence. We shouldn't take the $5 billion. You're cutting all these deals with everybody else. You're building, with Greece, everybody. You're building your own alliances or your own network. Where does that stand? Because there's other people saying that Times of Israel reports today there's some factions in Bibi's coalition saying you got to get the MOU. We need a new MOU, et cetera. How serious is this effort for people to really say, hey, look, we shouldn't have to go begging the United States every time we want to take on a move in Syria against ISIS, or if we see ballistic missile capabilities, we want to take them out. We shouldn't have to call Washington and get permission, sir.
Yeah, look, and it goes beyond that. Look at what Trump won't be in power forever, and under the Biden administration, there was weapons that were being withheld from Israel, and it all has to do with this asymmetrical relationship. More and more Israelis are waking up to the fact that the aid from the United States is bad for Israel. It limits us strategically. The way that Israel got the aid to begin with was always as a way of pressuring Israel or selling Israel on making security concessions. It all started when we gave up the Sinai Desert and the Camp David Accords with Jimmy Carter. So the aid to Israel has always been a strategic problem for Israel. And right now, in Bibi's inner circle, there are different factions. Netanyahu himself, finally, over the course of the last 6 months or so, and ramping it up in the last couple of months, has been talking about the need to end the aid completely when this MOU ends. I pray to God that we actually do so. More and more Israelis, as I said, are waking up to the fact that we need to do so. But there is that faction, that hardcore faction, those old-fashioned guys, the deep staters here, who want the MOU renewed. They might even want an increase. They're going to be lobbying for it. I've been pretty vocal in my Jerusalem Post columns and elsewhere, advocating that the aid is bad for Israel. So it is a bit of a knife fight going on over this issue. But thankfully, Netanyahu has come out openly on our side, on the side of drawing down the aid. Israel's becoming more and more independent. Steve, think about this one detail. Israel in the last month has sold over $10 billion worth of air defense systems to Germany and Greece alone. The annual payout of aid to Israel, the military aid to Israel, is $3.8 billion. And at the same time, we just signed a gas supply deal where we're supplying natural gas to Egypt. $35 billion deal was signed over the last 2 weeks. This $3.8 billion from the United States is less and less of our annual budget. Yep. It's less and less. It's a tiny fraction of a percentage of our GDP. It's not even that big a percentage of our defense budget anymore. It's less than 10% of our defense budget at this point. So we need to get rid of this aid, and hopefully it's moving in that direction. I was informed, and it was spoken about here in Israel over the last few weeks, that this was going to be on the agenda of the meetings with Trump. They didn't talk about it in the press conference, but if Netanyahu stays in the prime minister's office, we will move in the direction of the aid being drawn down. If he's not prime minister, we might get someone who thinks more traditionally, who wants to keep the aid going.
Yeah. Where do people get these videos you're putting out in your columns? Where do they go for all your content?
Thank you. The videos are 3 times a week at the Israel 365 YouTube channel. And thank you for the endorsement, Steve. These are not just videos of me yapping. Yeah. These are videos explaining things that are going on in the Middle East that you simply are not getting through the mainstream media. You can also find my columns on the Jerusalem Post, jpost.com. I have a piece tomorrow about Israel's recognition of Somaliland and why that's so important geostrategically. And you could also follow me on X at RabbiPW and at Israel365action.com.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you staying up late to do this live. Thank you, sir.